Billionaire froze at the altar after seeing his ex walk in with twin children. "Martin, what's happening?" "Who is she?" The bride's voice cracked across the chapel. 200 wedding guests held their breath as Martin Raymond stood frozen at the altar, his face drained of all color, staring at the woman in the doorway. "First, I can't." The words died in his throat, because standing there, backlit by the afternoon sun, was Teresa George, the woman he'd lost 7 years ago, the woman whose name he still thought about in quiet moments. And flanking her like two small witnesses to his past were children, 6-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, with his dark hair, his jawline, his eyes staring back at him like a mirror he'd never known existed. "They're mine." It wasn't a question. It was a recognition, a truth detonating in real time. "Those children are mine." The murmur that rippled through the assembled guests sounded like a wave building before it crashes. Simone Castelline, resplendent in a $50,000 gown, took a step back from her groom. Her hand dropped from his arm. "Martin, answer me. What is happening?" But Martin was already moving, down the aisle, away from his bride, toward the past that had just walked through the door carrying his future. "Yes," Teresa's voice cut through the chaos. Quiet. Certain. Devastating. "Yes, they're yours. Have you ever made a choice you couldn't take back? Said something you can't unhear? Lost someone because you were too broken to love them, right? What if the life you built to forget the past came crashing down the moment your past demanded to be remembered? This is the story of a man who said the wrong name at the wrong time and lost everything that mattered. A woman who disappeared with a secret that would change 3 lives forever. And 2 children who deserved the truth, even if it destroyed a wedding. Can people really change? Can broken trust be rebuilt? And is 7 years long enough to become someone worthy of a second chance they don't deserve? Stay with me, because what happened next will make you question everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and whether some mistakes are too big to forgive. If you believe in stories about hard-earned redemption, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Mr. Kingsley Luck's stories, because we don't do fairy tales here. We tell the messy, complicated truth about real people facing impossible choices. Drop a comment telling me, would you give someone a second chance after 7 years? Let's talk about it. But to understand how we got to this moment, to this chapel on the California coast with a wedding imploding and a billionaire's carefully constructed world shattering, we need to go back 7 years, to the night everything broke. Teresa George lay awake in the darkness of Martin Raymond's bedroom, listening to the sound of the ocean through the open window and the sound of her heart breaking in her chest. The sheets were still warm from lovemaking. Martin's arm was draped across her waist. His breathing had just settled into the deep rhythm of sleep. They'd been together for 2 years. 2 years of building something she thought was real, of planning a future, of believing that love could heal even the deepest wounds. She'd been wrong. "I love you, Carolyn." The words were barely a whisper, mumbled in that space between waking and sleeping when the mind stops filtering and the truth spills out. "I love you, Carolyn." Teresa went completely still. She didn't breathe, didn't move, just lay there, feeling something inside her chest crack open and bleed. Carolyn, not Teresa. Carolyn, the ghost that had haunted their entire relationship. Martin's first love. The woman who died in a car accident when they were both 23. 15 years ago. 15 years, and he was still so deep in grief that her name was what surfaced when his defenses were down. Teresa carefully extracted herself from his embrace. Martin didn't wake. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking, understanding with perfect clarity that she would never be first, would never be the name he said in his sleep, would always be second to a memory he'd turned into something sacred and untouchable. She'd tried to be patient, to understand that grief didn't have a timeline, to accept that loving someone meant loving all of them, including the parts still broken from loss. But this was different. This was being replaced in real time by someone who wasn't even alive. This was knowing that when Martin's guard was completely down, when he was most vulnerable and honest, it wasn't Teresa he reached for. She stood, got dressed in the dark, gathered her things with the careful silence of someone committing a crime, because leaving felt like theft, like stealing herself away from a future she'd invested 2 years building. Martin, still asleep, rolled over into the warm space she'd left behind. The drive back to her apartment took 20 minutes. She didn't cry. Couldn't cry. The pain was too big for tears. It sat in her chest like a stone, heavy and cold and absolute. Over the next 2 weeks, Teresa dismantled her life in Coastline Bay with methodical precision. She'd been offered a position at a Seattle architectural firm 6 months ago and turned it down because of Martin, because they'd been talking about moving in together, about a future. She called them back. The position was still available. She gave her notice at her current firm, started packing her apartment in boxes labeled with cities and dreams that didn't include Martin Raymond. He called, texted, showed up at her door confused and hurt and completely unaware of what he'd done. "Teresa, what's going on? Talk to me. Did I do something?" She almost told him, almost explained about the name, the moment, the realization that she would never be enough. But what would be the point? You couldn't ask someone to stop grieving, couldn't demand to be chosen over a ghost. "I need a fresh start. It's not about you." That was the lie she told. The kindness she offered him because, despite everything, she'd loved him, maybe still loved him. But love wasn't enough when you were competing with memory turned mythology. The day she left Coastline Bay, she didn't say goodbye. Just loaded her car in the early morning and drove north with the sunrise in her rearview mirror and the ocean disappearing behind her. 2 weeks later, in her new Seattle apartment that still smelled like paint and possibility, Teresa sat on the bathroom floor staring at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Pregnant. The word didn't feel real. She took 3 more tests, all positive. Went to a clinic, got confirmation, 8 weeks along, which meant conception had happened right around the time Martin had said Carolyn's name. The universe apparently had a cruel sense of irony. She sat in her car in the clinic parking lot, hands on her still flat stomach, and faced the biggest decision of her life. Tell Martin and tie herself to him forever through obligation, or disappear completely and raise this child alone. The answer should have been obvious. He had a right to know. This was his child, too. But Teresa thought about spending the next 18 years being second choice. Thought about her child growing up watching their mother be overlooked for a memory. Thought about birthday parties and holidays and school events where Martin would show up out of duty, not desire. She thought about the name he'd said in his sleep, and she chose silence. Elena, her best friend who'd moved to Seattle with her, found Teresa that evening still sitting in her car. "How long have you been out here?" Teresa looked up. Her face was dry. She'd moved past tears into something colder and more resolved. "I'm pregnant. It's Martin's, and I'm not telling him." Elena slid into the passenger seat. She didn't argue, didn't lecture, just asked the only question that mattered. "Are you sure? He's still in love with a dead woman. I can't raise a child in that shadow. I can't be that woman who trapped him with a pregnancy. I'd rather do this alone." Elena reached over and took Teresa's hand. "Then we do it alone. Together." The pregnancy was hard. Morning sickness that lasted all day. Fatigue that made her feel like she was moving through concrete. And at 12 weeks, during a routine ultrasound, the discovery that made everything exponentially more complicated. Twins. The ultrasound technician smiled brightly, while Teresa's world tilted sideways. 2 heartbeats. "Looks like you're having twins. Congratulations. 2 babies. 2 lives depending on her. Double the responsibility, double the fear, double the stakes of the choice she'd made." That night, Teresa almost called Martin, almost broke her silence and told him everything. But then she imagined the conversation, the shock, the obligation, the careful rearrangement of his life to accommodate an inconvenience. She deleted his number from her phone. The architectural firm where she worked was understanding when she explained she was pregnant and alone. They gave her flexible hours, let her work from home when the exhaustion was too much, supported her as her belly grew with 2 lives she'd created with a man who didn't know they existed. She enrolled in night classes to finish her master's degree, because if she was doing this alone, she needed every advantage, every qualification, every possible edge to build a life stable enough for 2 children. The twins were born on April 9th. 22 hours of labor. No partner to hold her hand. Just Elena, coaching her through contractions and transitions and the final terrifying push that brought 2 tiny humans into the world. A girl first, 5 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect and screaming. "It's a girl." What's her name? Teresa, exhausted and overwhelmed and flooded with hormones that made everything feel both infinite and impossible, looked at her daughter. Ivy. Her name is Ivy. For resilience, for the way ivy grows anywhere, survives everything, thrives despite conditions that would kill other plants. 12 minutes later, a boy, 5 pounds even, quieter than his sister, studying the world with serious eyes. Julian. His name is Julian, for strength, for the saint of hospitality and kindness, for the hope that her son would grow up generous despite the absence of his father. The first 3 months were survival. Teresa moved through days in a fog of sleeplessness and feeding schedules and the constant low-level panic of keeping 2 infants alive alone. Her master's thesis was written in 15-minute increments between diaper changes. Her final presentation was delivered on 3 hours of sleep, with baby spit-up she hadn't noticed on her shoulder. She graduated top of her class. 6 months after the twins were born, Teresa started her own architectural firm from her apartment, Carter Sustainable Design, specializing in eco-friendly housing for low-income families. It was ambitious, probably crazy, definitely terrifying, but she'd learned something in those 6 months of solo parenting. She was stronger than she'd known, more capable, more determined. If she could keep 2 infants alive while getting a graduate degree, she could build a business. The first year, she had 3 clients, small projects, community centers and affordable housing renovations. She worked during naps and after bedtimes, designing structures that would give families what she was trying to give her own children: stability, safety, a foundation. Year 2, she hired her first employee, a young designer fresh out of school who didn't mind that their office was Teresa's living room and meetings were sometimes interrupted by crying babies. Year 3, she moved into actual office space, hired 3 more people, won her first major contract for a sustainable housing development in Tacoma. The twins grew, started walking, then running, started talking in their own twin language before transitioning to English, developed personalities that were completely distinct and entirely themselves. Julian was careful, analytical, obsessed with how things were built. At 3 years old, he could spend an hour studying a building's facade, asking questions about structure and support. Ivy was creative, expressive, drew elaborate pictures of dragons and castles and worlds that existed only in her imagination. They were brilliant, both of them, and they were hers. But they asked questions. "Mama, why don't we have a daddy?" The first time Ivy asked, she was 4. They were at the park. She'd been watching another family, a mom and dad pushing their kid on the swings together. Teresa's heart clenched. Some families have mommies and daddies. Some have just mommies. Some have just daddies. Some have 2 mommies or 2 daddies. Families look different, baby. Ours is just you, me, and Julian. And that's perfect. But where's our daddy? Do we have one? Yes, you have a father. He just doesn't live with us. Why not? It's complicated, sweetheart. Ivy had accepted that answer at 4. At 5, she asked again, pushing deeper. At 6, both twins started asking questions Teresa couldn't deflect with vague answers about complicated grown-up situations. What's his name? Where does he live? Why doesn't he want to know us? That last question, from Julian, delivered with the kind of directness he'd inherited from both his parents, nearly broke Teresa. It's not that he doesn't want to know you. He doesn't know you exist. Why not? Didn't you tell him? And there it was. The reckoning Teresa had been avoiding for 6 years. She sat both twins down at the kitchen table, made hot chocolate even though it was summer because some conversations needed comfort food. Your father's name is Martin. I loved him very much. But when I found out I was pregnant with you, I made a choice not to tell him. That was my decision, not his. And it might not have been the right choice, but it's the one I made because I thought I was protecting all of us. Can we meet him? Ivy's eyes were wide, hopeful. Do you want to? Both twins nodded. Teresa felt the ground shift beneath her. She'd built 6 years of life on the foundation of Martin's absence. Her entire identity as a mother was wrapped up in being enough all by herself, in not needing him. But this wasn't about what she needed. It was about 2 children who deserved to know where they came from. Okay, let me think about how to do that. Give me some time. That night, after the twins were asleep, Teresa sat at her desk and began writing a letter. Dear Martin, I need to tell you something that will change both our lives. She wrote 17 drafts over 3 weeks, each one trying to find the right words to explain 6 years of silence, 6 years of choices, 6 years of children growing up without their father because she'd been too hurt and proud and scared to tell him they existed. The final version was simple. Martin, you have children. Twins. A boy and a girl. They're 6 years old, and they're asking about their father. I'm coming to Coastline Bay to tell you in person because this conversation deserves more than a letter. I'll be there November 15th. I hope you'll agree to meet me. Teresa. She sealed the envelope, addressed it to Cross Enterprises, Martin's company headquarters, put a stamp on it, and then she saw the newspaper article Elena had left on her counter. Local hotel magnate to wed. Martin Raymond and Simone Castellane announced November 15th wedding. Teresa stared at the date. November 15th. The day she'd planned to arrive. The day she'd planned to tell him. He was getting married. For a moment, she considered abandoning the whole plan. He'd moved on. Built a life. Why disrupt it with revelations about children he'd never known existed? But then Julian came into the kitchen, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. Did you write to our dad? Teresa looked at her son, at his hopeful face, at the way he was trying so hard to be casual about something that clearly meant everything. Yes, baby. I wrote to him. When do we get to meet him? Soon. She didn't send the letter, because showing up in person felt more honest than advance warning. Because if Martin was getting married, he deserved to know about his children before he made vows to someone else. Because her twins were looking at her with trust and hope, and she'd spent 6 years making choices for them. Maybe it was time to let them have a voice. Elena found her packing 3 days later. You're really doing this? Showing up at his wedding? I'm not showing up at his wedding. I'm showing up the day before to tell him about the twins. The wedding thing is just unfortunate timing. Teresa, he's getting married to someone else. You're about to drop a bomb that will destroy that. I'm about to tell him the truth. What he does with it is his choice. Elena studied her friend. After 6 years, she could read Teresa's face like a map. You still love him? No. I survived him. There's a difference. But Elena's words stuck with Teresa during the entire drive down the coast. 3 days later, she loaded Ivy and Julian into her car with suitcases and snacks and downloaded movies for the drive. Where are we going? Julian asked for the 3rd time. To meet someone important. Who? You'll see when we get there. Is it our dad? Ivy's voice was quiet, scared and excited in equal measure. Yes, baby. We're going to meet your dad. The twins were silent for a long moment, processing. Then Ivy asked, what if he doesn't like us? Teresa's hands tightened on the steering wheel. That's not possible. You're incredible. Both of you. Anyone would be lucky to know you. But what if he's mad you didn't tell him about us? Out of the mouths of children. The question Teresa had been avoiding for 6 years. He might be. That's okay. Sometimes adults get mad. It doesn't mean anyone's bad. It just means we have big feelings to work through. They drove through the morning, stopped for lunch at a diner where the twins picked at their food, too nervous to eat. Got back on the road. At 2 in the afternoon, Teresa's rental car got a flat tire on Highway 1, 15 miles outside Coastline Bay. Of course, this would happen now. She pulled over, got out, assessed the situation. The spare was in the trunk, buried under suitcases. She could change it herself. She'd learned to do everything herself over the past 6 years. What's wrong, Mama? Julian appeared at her elbow. Flat tire. It's okay. I can fix it. She did fix it. But it took 40 minutes. By the time they were back on the road, it was past 3. And the meeting she'd planned for mid-afternoon was rapidly becoming impossible. They pulled into Coastline Bay at 3:30. Teresa had the address of the chapel from the newspaper announcement. She'd planned to go to Martin's office first, to call and arrange a meeting, to do this with some semblance of planning and control. But as she drove past the chapel, she saw cars lining the street. Guests in formal wear walking toward the entrance. The wedding was happening. Right now. Teresa pulled over 2 blocks away. Mama? Ivy's voice was small. Teresa sat frozen behind the wheel. She could drive away. Come back tomorrow. Handle this like a reasonable adult instead of a woman about to detonate someone's wedding. But the twins were here. They'd driven 6 hours. They deserved answers, not more delays. Change of plans, she said, turning off the car. We're going to meet your father today. Right now. At his wedding? Julian's eyes went wide. Not exactly at his wedding. Just near his wedding. This is a terrible idea, Teresa thought as she helped the twins out of the car. Absolutely terrible, but she was committed now. She took Ivy's hand. Julian walked beside her, serious and quiet. They walked the 2 blocks to the chapel. Music floated through the open doors. Classical, processional. The ceremony had already started. Teresa stood at the bottom of the steps, paralyzed by indecision. "Is that where our dad is?" Julian asked. "Yes." "Are we going in?" Ivy squeezed Teresa's hand. "I'm scared." "Me too, baby. But sometimes we do hard things anyway." Teresa climbed the steps. The twins flanked her, small and brave and completely unaware they were about to change 3 lives forever. She reached the chapel doors. Through the gap, she could see the interior. Flowers everywhere. Candles. 200 people in their seats. And at the altar, Martin Raymond in a perfect tuxedo standing beside a woman in a white gown. The officiant was speaking. "If anyone has any reason why these 2 should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace." It was a formality. No one ever actually objected. Teresa pushed open the door. The late afternoon sunlight flooded in behind her, backlighting her and the twins in the doorway. The creak of hinges silenced the officiant mid-sentence. Every head turned, and Martin Raymond, 13 minutes from saying "I do" to a woman he respected but didn't love, locked eyes with Teresa George. She watched the recognition hit him, watched his face register shock, then confusion. Then his gaze dropped to the children on either side of her. She watched him see Julian's dark hair, Ivy's face shape, the unmistakable genetic markers that declared them his. She watched him do the math, and she watched the color drain from his face as he understood. "I'm sorry." Teresa's voice carried across the silent chapel. "I didn't mean to interrupt. We can wait outside." "No." Martin's voice cracked on the word. He took a step away from the altar, from his bride. Don't go." Simone turned, her face confused and hurt. "Martin? What's happening? Who is she?" But Martin wasn't looking at Simone. He was walking down the aisle toward Teresa, toward the children who had his eyes. The murmurs started, whispers racing through the pews like wildfire. Martin reached them, stopped 3 feet away. His hands were shaking. "How old are they?" 6. They were born April 9th. She watched him count backward. July, the month before she'd disappeared. The month everything between them had fallen apart for reasons he'd never understood. "You were pregnant when you left." "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" Teresa glanced down at Ivy and Julian, who were listening to every word with wide eyes. "You want to have that conversation here? In front of your bride and 200 wedding guests and our children who are listening to every word?" The word "our" landed like a physical blow. "Our children." "You're right." Martin looked back at Simone, who stood at the altar looking lost in her enormous gown. "Not here." But before he could say anything else, before the situation could spiral further, Ivy spoke up. "Are you our dad?" The question, delivered in a 6-year-old's clear voice, silenced every whisper in the chapel. Martin looked down at his daughter, really looked at her, at the green eyes she'd gotten from Teresa set in a face that was shaped like his, at her yellow sundress and the way she held Teresa's hand so tight her knuckles were white. He crouched down to her level. "Yes, I am. I didn't know you existed until about 30 seconds ago, which means I missed the first 6 years of your lives. I can't change that, and I'm more sorry about it than I know how to say. But if you'll let me, I'd like to get to know you now." It was the right thing to say. Honest, direct, age-appropriate. Ivy processed this seriously. "Okay, we'll think about it." Then she looked at her brother. "What do you think, Julian?" Julian was studying Martin with the analytical intensity he applied to buildings and bridges. "You look like me. Same chin." "We do have the same chin," Martin agreed. His voice was thick with emotion he was barely containing. "Why didn't you know about us?" "Where were you?" "That's complicated. Adults always say things are complicated when they don't want to explain. I'm 6, not stupid." Martin's eyebrows rose. "You're absolutely right. You deserve a real answer. Your mom and I had a relationship that ended. When she found out she was pregnant, she made the decision not to tell me. That was her choice to make, and I understand why she made it, even though I wish things had been different. It was diplomatic. It didn't assign blame. And Teresa respected him for it even as she prepared to add necessary context. The relationship ended because he was still in love with someone else. Teresa's voice was gentle but firm. I left because staying would have been too painful. I built our life without his help or knowledge. Those are the facts. Before Martin could respond, Simone's voice cut through the tension. Martin. He stood, turned. His bride was walking down the aisle toward them, her gown whispering against the floor. Simone, we should postpone. Her voice was calm, controlled, gracious in a way that suggested years of training in maintaining composure under pressure. Clearly, you have things you need to handle. I'm sorry. Martin looked genuinely devastated. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. Simone glanced at Teresa, then at the twins. A strange expression crossed her face, something like understanding, or perhaps relief. Handle your family, Martin. They need you more than I do. She turned and walked back down the aisle. Out a side door, her bridesmaids hurried after her in a rustle of silk and confusion. The chapel erupted. Guests stood. Phones came out. The scandal of the decade was unfolding in real time and everyone wanted evidence. Martin's father, Richard Raymond, stood from the front pew. He was 72, silver-haired, still commanding despite his age. I think we'll reschedule. His voice carried authority that silenced the murmurs. Thank you all for coming. We'll be in touch. It was a dismissal. The guests filed out, casting curious glances back at Martin, Teresa, and the twins. Within minutes, the chapel was empty, except for family. Richard approached slowly. He looked at Teresa with an expression she couldn't quite read. Teresa George. I wondered if I'd ever see you again, Mr. Raymond, and these must be my grandchildren. He crouched down, his movements careful. Age had caught up with him in the 7 years since Teresa had last seen him. I'm your grandfather. What are your names? I'm Ivy. He's Julian. Ivy, never shy, studied Richard with open curiosity. Do you own hotels too? I used to. Now your father does. Are they nice hotels? Julian asked. Very nice. Maybe you'll visit them someday. Maybe. Julian allowed, non-committal. Richard stood, looked at his son, who appeared to be in shock. Take them to the house. Talk. Figure this out. He paused. And Martin? Don't screw this up worse than you already have. Martin nodded mutely. Richard turned back to Teresa. It's good to see you again, despite the circumstances. Then he left, his footsteps echoing in the empty chapel. Teresa, Martin, and the twins stood in heavy silence. Finally, Martin spoke. Will you come? To my house. We need to talk, and the kids, our kids, they should be comfortable. Teresa wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain control, wanted to get back in her car and process this disaster privately. But Ivy was looking at Martin with barely concealed curiosity, and Julian had questions building behind his serious eyes. She'd come here to give them access to their father. Okay, just to talk, to establish ground rules and figure out how this works going forward. Fair enough. Martin's house sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. All glass and clean lines and views that made you understand why people paid millions for California coastal property. Teresa had been here once, 7 years ago, when it was still under construction. He'd finished it, and it was exactly as beautiful as he'd described. This is where you live. Ivy breathed, pressing her face to the floor-to-ceiling windows. It's like a castle. It's just a house, Martin said, but he looked pleased. Are you guys hungry? I could order pizza. Pizza has to have olives and peppers. Julian's tone was serious. Not just pepperoni. Pepperoni is boring. I like just cheese, Ivy countered. Martin glanced at Teresa. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes despite everything. Half and half. That usually works, Teresa confirmed. While Martin ordered food, Teresa let the twins explore under her supervision. The house was stunning but impersonal, decorated with expensive art and designer furniture, but nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. No photos, no books, no clutter of daily life. Julian noticed too. Your house is pretty, but it doesn't feel like a home. Our house has stuff everywhere. That's because we actually live in our house, Teresa said quietly. Martin, returning from his phone call, must have heard because something pained crossed his face. You're right. It doesn't feel like a home. Maybe you can help me fix that. If you'd like to visit sometimes. We'll see, Teresa said. keeping her voice neutral, even as her heart did complicated things. The pizza arrived 20 minutes later. They sat at Martin's massive dining table, the twins filling the awkward silence with chatter about their school in Seattle, their friends, the elaborate fantasy game they played at recess involving coastal magic and architectural marvels. Martin listened like someone trying to memorize everything, trying to download 6 years of information in one conversation. So, you live in Seattle? Yes. I have an architectural firm there. Carter Sustainable Design. You started your own firm? Martin's surprise was evident. While pregnant with twins, started it when they were 6 months old. That's, Teresa, that's incredible. It was necessary. She kept her voice matter of fact. I needed flexibility and control over my schedule. Working for someone else with 2 infants wasn't realistic. Still, your own firm. That's always been your dream. Some dreams you chase, some you build, because survival demands it. The weight of that statement settled over the table. After pizza, the twins were getting drowsy, the long drive and emotional intensity catching up with them. Teresa settled them on Martin's couch with a documentary about bridges that Julian had been obsessed with for months. Then she and Martin stepped out onto the deck. The sun was setting, painting the ocean in shades of gold and rose. The wind pulled at Teresa's hair. Okay, Martin's voice was rough. Tell me everything. Why you left, why you didn't tell me, what the past 6 years have been like. I need to understand. Teresa gripped the deck railing. The wood was smooth and expensive under her palms. Do you remember Carolyn? The name landed between them like a stone. Martin went pale. Yes. Then you know why I left. Teresa, you were never going to love me the way you loved her. I understood that. I tried to accept it. But then, you said her name. When? That night in July. After we made love. After we made the twins, though I didn't know it yet. You were falling asleep, and you said, I love you, Carolyn. Teresa's voice remained steady, but her hands shook. You didn't even realize you'd done it. And I lay there next to you and understood that I would never be more than second place. I couldn't do it anymore. So I left. Jesus, Teresa. Martin's voice broke. I don't remember that. I know. That's what made it worse. You were still so deep in grief that you didn't even know you were choosing her over me. Even in your sleep. She turned to face him. 2 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. And I thought about calling you. Every single day, I thought about it. But I kept seeing your face when you talked about her. Kept hearing her name. And I knew I couldn't raise children in a home where their mother was always second choice to a memory. So, you built a life without me. I built a life for them. For us. I got my master's degree while pregnant with twins. Started my firm when they were 6 months old. Worked 80-hour weeks and survived on 4 hours of sleep. And learned to be complete unto myself. Because needing someone who couldn't fully choose me would have destroyed me. Martin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw. I would have chosen you. If I'd known, you would have chosen obligation, duty, the right thing to do. But not me, Martin. Not really. Not the way I needed to be chosen. And now I'm here because they deserve to know their father. Because Julian asks questions about genetics and inheritance. Because Ivy wants to know why she doesn't have a daddy like her friends do. This isn't about me. It's about them. Martin turned to look through the glass wall at the twins, curled up on his couch, Ivy's head on Julian's shoulder. They're perfect. Yes, they are. He looked back at Teresa. I've been in therapy for 5 years now, working through the grief, the guilt, the way I turned Carolyn into a saint instead of remembering her as a real person. He paused. It started after my dad had a health scare, made me realize I'd spent 15 years frozen, building hotels but not a life. Teresa said nothing. My therapist asked me once who I'd loved besides Carolyn. Really loved, and your face was all I could see. Don't, Teresa said sharply. Don't what? Don't rewrite history. Don't pretend you loved me when you were sleeping with her memory between us. I did love you. I was just too broken to do it right. Too stuck in the past to be fully present. Martin's voice carried conviction, and I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't undo the pain I caused. But Teresa, I've spent 7 years becoming someone who could love you the way you deserved back then. Not for you. I had no idea I'd ever see you again. I did it for myself because staying frozen was killing me slowly. And Simone was safe, convenient, someone I could marry without risking my heart because we both knew it was a partnership, not a passion. Martin's laugh was bitter, which is a terrible reason to marry someone. She deserved better. I'm actually relieved she walked away. Teresa wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that people could change, that grief could be processed. That 7 years was enough time to become someone different, but she'd spent 6 years learning to trust only herself. I can't just jump back in. I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. I'm harder, more guarded, less willing to settle for less than I deserve. And what I deserve is someone who chooses me first, every time, wide awake and certain. I understand. Martin moved closer but didn't touch her. I'm not asking you to jump. I'm asking if you'd be willing to consider letting me prove I've changed, not through words, through actions, through showing up for our children, for you, consistently, even when it's hard. I'm not moving here. Seattle is our home. I have a business, a life, a community. The twins have school and friends and routines. I'm not uprooting them. I wouldn't ask you to. I can come to Seattle. I can restructure my hotels to run with me as a traveling executive. Whatever it takes to be part of their lives. And what about us? Teresa couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying I'd like the chance to get to know who you've become, to let you see who I've become, to figure out if there's something there worth exploring beyond co-parenting. Martin's eyes were intense. But only if you want that, Teresa. Only if you think you could ever trust me again. Inside, through the glass, Ivy had woken up. She was trying to rouse Julian, who was deeply asleep. Teresa made a decision. Ground rules. If you want to be in their lives, it has to be real and consistent. You can't decide in 6 months that fatherhood is too hard or interferes with your business. They need stability, whatever you need, whatever they need. I'm in. We start slow. Video calls twice a week. You visit Seattle once a month for the first 3 months. If that goes well, we increase it. But Martin, if you commit to this, you commit completely. I promise. I won't let them down the way I let you down. Promising is easy. Doing is what counts. They spent the next hour working out logistics, custody arrangements, visitation schedules, boundaries around gifts and decision-making. Teresa had come prepared with documents her lawyer had drafted, protecting her primary parental rights while allowing supervised visitation. Martin signed everything without argument. I understand I'm starting from zero, from less than zero. I have to earn this. Yes, you do. When Ivy and Julian woke up, groggy and disoriented in an unfamiliar house, Martin drove them all back to Teresa's hotel. The twins were quiet in the back seat of his car, processing everything that had happened. At the hotel parking lot, Martin crouched down to their level one more time. I'm your dad. I didn't know you existed until today, and I'm more sorry about that than I know how to say. But if you'll let me, I'd really like to get to know you, to be part of your lives. Would that be okay? Ivy studied him with serious green eyes. Will you call us? Like on the phone? As often as your mom says is okay. And I'll visit you in Seattle. We can do whatever you want. Museums, parks, ice cream, anything. Can we see your hotels? Julian asked. I want to know how they're designed. If they're structurally interesting. Martin laughed. The sound was surprised and genuine. Absolutely. We can tour every single one if you want. Ivy made her decision. Okay, you can be our dad. But you have to be nice to Mama. She doesn't like it when people are mean. I will be so nice to your Mama. The nicest I know how to be. After Martin left, Teresa got the twins ready for bed in their hotel room. They were buzzing with questions and observations. Do you like him? Ivy asked as Teresa tucked her in. Like how you like Uncle David or how you like chocolate. Teresa smiled despite herself. I don't know yet, baby. I knew him a long time ago, but people change. I need to get to know who he is now. He seems sad, like he lost something important and just found it again. He might be. I think he likes you. Julian's voice was matter of fact. He looks at you the way Prince Philip looks at Aurora in Sleeping Beauty. That's a big assumption based on one afternoon. I'm good at reading people, which was true. Julian had inherited Teresa's ability to see beneath surfaces in Martin's analytical mind. The combination made him unnervingly perceptive for a 6-year-old. After the twins finally fell asleep, Teresa stood on the hotel balcony watching the ocean, trying to process the surreal turn her carefully planned disclosure had taken. She'd stopped a wedding, revealed children, opened a door she'd welded shut 7 years ago. Her phone buzzed. A text from Martin. "Thank you for today. For them. For the chance to make this right. I meant everything I said." She stared at it for a long moment before typing back. "Actions, not words. Prove it." His response was immediate. "I will. Starting now. Sleep well, Teresa." She didn't respond, but she didn't block his number either. The next 6 months unfolded in a careful dance of boundary setting and trust building. Martin called the twins exactly when he said he would, Tuesday and Thursday evenings, 15 minutes each time. Never late, never canceling, never making excuses. The first call was awkward, everyone trying too hard. Martin asked questions that felt like an interview. The twins gave one-word answers. By the third call, something shifted. Julian started showing Martin his building designs through the camera. Detailed sketches of impossible structures with careful notations about support beams and foundation depth. Martin engaged seriously. "This cantilever here. How are you planning to support the weight distribution?" Julian's face lit up. Someone was speaking his language. "I was thinking steel reinforcement, here and here. But I'm not sure about the calculations. Let me show you something." Martin pulled out his own notebook. Started sketching, explaining load-bearing principles and architectural mathematics. Father and son lost in the world of structures and stability. Ivy, not to be outdone, sang Martin a song she'd learned at school. Then showed him her latest dragon drawing, a purple dragon breathing fire over a city that looked suspiciously like Seattle. "That's incredible, Ivy. You're really talented." "Thank you. Do you like purple?" "I do now." Teresa watched these interactions from careful distance, monitoring without interfering. Martin was good with them. Patient, engaged, genuinely interested in their lives. It was exactly what she'd hoped for, and exactly what terrified her. Because if Martin proved himself capable of sustained commitment, she'd have to acknowledge that maybe people could change, that maybe her walls were no longer protection but prison. 3 weeks after the chapel incident, Martin flew to Seattle for his first visit. He texted updates throughout the day. Landed. Checked into hotel. On my way to your address. Teresa appreciated the communication, the accountability. When the doorbell rang, both twins raced to answer it. Teresa followed at a measured pace. Martin stood on her porch holding a wrapped package. He looked nervous. Hi. Come in." The twins were already pulling him inside, chattering about everything they wanted to show him. "I brought you something." Martin held out the package. "But I want to be clear, I'm not trying to buy your affection. Your mom and I agreed that gifts should be meaningful, not excessive. So this is small, but I thought you might like it." He handed it to Julian, who opened it carefully to reveal a book about famous architects throughout history. "This is perfect." Julian's voice was reverent. "Look, Ivy. Frank Lloyd Wright." Ivy's package contained a sketchbook with dragons embossed on the purple cover. "I love it." She hugged it to her chest. "Thank you. You're welcome." Martin looked at Teresa. His expression asked, "Did I do okay?" She gave the slightest nod. The museum visit was a success. Julian dragged Martin through the architecture exhibit with single-minded purpose, asking questions, absorbing information, finding in his father someone who understood his obsession. At the butterfly pavilion, Ivy stood very still in the center of the pathway, arms outstretched, waiting. "What's she doing?" Martin whispered to Teresa. "Waiting for butterflies. She has a theory that they come to you if you're very still and think beautiful thoughts. Does it work? Watch." Within moments, a monarch butterfly landed on Ivy's outstretched hand, then another on her shoulder, then 3 more, until she had 5 butterflies resting on her like she was a flower they'd been seeking. "Don't move." Teresa pulled out her phone, but Martin was faster, already capturing the moment from multiple angles. "This is incredible. She's like a butterfly magnet. She's a butterfly princess." Ivy's whisper was filled with wonder. Julian, watching with a mixture of envy and pride, tried the technique, standing still, presumably thinking beautiful thoughts about structural engineering. A small blue butterfly landed on his nose. "I got one." His excited yelp scared it away. "You have to stay still." Ivy's tone was instructive. "I scared it." You'll get another chance. Martin moved to stand beside Julian. Here. Stand next to me. We'll be still together. They stood side by side, father and son, waiting for butterflies. Teresa felt something in her chest crack, not break, but crack the way ice does when spring comes, making room for something new. This was what she'd wanted for them. A father who showed up, who participated, who made ordinary moments special just by being present. But it was also dangerous, because the more Martin proved himself, the more she'd have to confront her own walls and decide whether they were still protection or had become isolation. After the butterfly pavilion, they stopped for ice cream despite the cool autumn weather. The twins debated flavors with the seriousness of people making life-altering decisions. Martin and Teresa stood slightly apart, watching. Thank you for today, for letting me be part of this. You did well. They're happy. That's what matters. Can I ask you something? Not about them. About you. That depends on the question. Are you happy? Beyond being a mother. Beyond your success. Beyond everything you've built. Are you happy? The question caught her off guard. I'm content. I have work that matters. Children I love. A life I built from nothing. That's more than most people get. Content isn't happy. Maybe not. But it's stable. And after 6 years of fighting for stability, I'll take it over the chaos of chasing happiness. Martin absorbed this with visible sadness. I did that to you. Made you choose survival over joy. You were part of it. But I made my own choices. I chose to leave. To start over. To build something that couldn't be taken from me. Those were my decisions, and I don't regret them. Even if they cost you happiness, happiness is overrated. It's a feeling that comes and goes. Stability is what keeps you alive when feelings fail. The twins returned with their selections. Mint chip for Julian. Strawberry for Ivy. They sat at a small table outside, the twins chattering while Martin and Teresa made careful small talk. The visit ended back at Teresa's house. A comfortable home in a good Seattle neighborhood. Nothing ostentatious, but solid and well-maintained. Can I come in? Martin asked at the door. Just for a few minutes. I'd like to see where they live. Teresa considered, then nodded. The house was exactly what Martin would have expected if he'd thought about it. Tastefully decorated, but clearly lived in. The twins' artwork covered the walls. Their toys organized in baskets that suggested someone fought a daily battle against chaos. Family photos lined one entire wall. 6 years of life Martin had missed. Birthdays and holidays. First days of school. Random moments deemed photo-worthy. You've built a beautiful life. I built a safe life. Beautiful was never the goal. Can I show you my room? Ivy tugged Martin's hand. I have a dragon collection. I'd love to see it. If she gets to show her room, I get to show mine. Julian protested. Mine has blueprints. I want to see both. We'll start with Ivy's, then Julian's. Fair? Fair. The tour took 20 minutes, each child pointing out treasured possessions, explaining their significance with the kind of detail that suggested they wanted their father to know everything about them all at once. Martin listened patiently, asked questions, treated their 6-year-old concerns with the same respect he'd give a board meeting. By the time they finished, it was past bedtime. Teresa shooed them toward the bathroom for baths while she walked Martin back to the door. Can I see them again tomorrow? Before I fly back in the evening, what did you have in mind? Nothing elaborate. Maybe just lunch, park time, whatever fits your schedule. Teresa had planned to maintain distance, keep his visits controlled and limited, but the twins had been so happy today, and Martin had been genuinely present. Lunch, noon. There's a park near here with a good playground. We'll meet you there. Thank you. Martin paused at the door. Renee, I know I have years of trust to rebuild. I know one good day doesn't erase 6 years of absence, but I want you to know I'm serious about this, about them. I'm not going anywhere. Time will tell. After he left, Teresa found both twins in the bathroom, supposedly brushing their teeth but actually playing with the water. Did you have fun today? The best, Lily confirmed. Can he come every weekend? Not every weekend. He lives in California. He has work. But he'll visit as often as he can. I like him, Alexander announced. He's smart, and he listens when I talk about buildings. Most adults pretend to listen, but they're really just waiting for me to stop. He does seem to really listen. Do you like him? Ivy asked again, the question apparently still unresolved in her mind. I'm glad he's a good father to you. Which wasn't an answer, but it was all Teresa was willing to offer. The pattern continued. Martin flew to Seattle once a month, exactly on schedule. The visits extended from a few hours to full days. Museums and parks. His Seattle hotel, where he let them explore architectural features. Quiet dinners at Teresa's house. Video calls became routine. The twins looked forward to Tuesday and Thursday evenings, telling Martin about their week, showing him school projects, asking him questions about his work, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, Teresa's walls began to crack. It started small. She'd catch herself smiling at something Martin said during a video call. She'd notice how good he was with the twins, how patient, how engaged. She'd see how he'd changed. More present, more emotionally available, more willing to be vulnerable than the man she'd known 7 years ago. 3 months in, Martin sent birthday gifts for the twins. A detailed model of the Golden Gate Bridge for Julian, professional colored pencils, and a premium sketchbook for Ivy. Not excessive, just perfectly calibrated to their interests in a way that showed he was paying attention. 4 months after the chapel incident, Martin made an announcement during dinner at Teresa's house. I have some news. The twins looked up from their plates. I've been restructuring my company, delegating more responsibilities to my executive team, and I've decided to open a Seattle office for Raymond Hotels. It'll be small at first, just a satellite location, but it means I can spend more time here, maybe 3 weeks out of every month instead of just weekends. The twins erupted into cheers. Really? You'll be here all the time? Most of the time, yes. Teresa felt her heart rate increase. Whether from excitement or panic, she couldn't determine. That's a big change. It's the right change. Martin looked at her directly. My company can function without me micromanaging every decision. But Alexander and Lily, they're only 6 once. I don't want to miss any more of their lives than I already have. What about your life in California? Your friends? Your routine? Everything you've built there? I didn't have much of a life in California. Just work. The few friends I had were really business associates who've mostly fallen away since I started traveling here so much. There's nothing tying me there except inertia and habit. Here, I have my children. That's everything. It was exactly the right answer, and it terrified Teresa completely. Because if Martin relocated to Seattle, the careful distance she'd maintained would become impossible. She'd have to actually deal with her feelings instead of compartmentalizing them into monthly visits. When would this happen? I'm looking at properties now, hoping to be settled within 6 weeks. I wanted to tell you first. Make sure it was okay. You don't need my permission to move to Seattle. It's a free country. No, but I need you to be comfortable with it. If this is too much, too fast, I can slow down the timeline. Teresa looked at the twins. Their faces were bright with excitement. Do it. Move here. Be close to them. They deserve that. What she didn't say was that maybe she deserved it too. Maybe she deserved to see what happened when someone who'd hurt her actually did the work to become better. That night, after Martin left and the twins were asleep, Elena found Teresa in the kitchen, staring into a cup of tea that had gone cold. You're thinking very loudly. He's moving here, opening a Seattle office. He'll be here 3 weeks out of every month. And how do you feel about that? I don't know. Terrified, hopeful, both simultaneously. He's been everything I hoped he'd be as a father. Consistent, present, genuinely engaged. The twins adore him. This should be good news. But it means I can't keep him at arm's length anymore. I can't pretend this is just about co-parenting when he's going to be a permanent fixture in our daily lives. I'm going to have to actually examine what I feel about him beyond just whether he's good for the children. And what do you feel about him? Teresa was quiet for a long moment. I don't hate him anymore. I did for a long time. But watching him with Alexander and Lily, seeing how he's changed, how he prioritizes them over everything else, it's hard to maintain hatred in the face of genuine transformation. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked. I'm just not ready to answer it honestly. Because the answer scares you. Because the answer means I might have to risk something I swore I'd never risk again. My heart, my trust, my belief that people can choose me and stay chosen. He broke all of that 7 years ago. What if he breaks it again? What if he doesn't? Elena's voice was gentle. What if he's actually become the man you needed him to be back then? Are you going to punish him forever for who he was, or give him credit for who he's become? It was the question Teresa had been avoiding for months. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can be that vulnerable again. You don't have to decide tonight. But eventually, you'll have to decide something. Living in this limbo, not moving forward, not letting go, that's just another kind of prison. You survived what he did to you. You built an empire from nothing. You raised 2 incredible children alone. You're strong enough to risk your heart again, if you choose to. The question is whether you're brave enough. 6 weeks later, Martin closed on a house in a quiet Seattle neighborhood. Craftsman style. Beautiful. 15 minutes from Teresa's place. He invited them over for the walkthrough before he moved in. This will be your room when you stay over. Martin showed Julian a bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a desk positioned to catch morning light. I thought you could use it for your architecture projects. Julian's eyes went wide. This is mine? Really mine? Really yours. We'll decorate it however you want. Ivy's room was painted lavender. Space for her growing dragon collection. A window seat perfect for reading. I love it. Can we stay tonight? Not tonight, Teresa interjected gently. Your dad doesn't even have furniture yet. But soon, once he's settled, they explored the rest of the house. A home office where Martin would work. A modern kitchen that opened to a backyard perfect for children. A living room with space for family movie nights. It was a home designed for the life Martin was building. Not the life he'd had. After the twins ran outside to explore the yard, Teresa and Martin stood in the kitchen. The space between them charged with something neither was quite ready to name. This is really happening. You're really here, in Seattle, building a life close to them. I told you I would. I know it took months to prove it, but I meant every word. They're my priority. This is where I need to be. Before we continue with what happens next in this story of second chances and hard-earned redemption, I need to pause and speak directly to you. We're at the halfway point of this journey. You've watched Teresa protect her heart while slowly learning to trust again. You've seen Martin transform from the man who chose wrong into the father who shows up every single day. You've witnessed 2 children navigate the complexity of gaining a parent they never knew they were missing. If this story has moved you, if you believe in second chances and hard-earned redemption, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that broken things can be rebuilt, that mistakes don't have to be permanent, that people can choose differently and mean it. Subscribe to Mr. Kingsley Luck's stories because this is what we do here. We tell the truth about love and loss and the messy work of becoming better than we were. Drop a comment telling me what you think should happen next, whether Teresa should risk her heart again, whether you believe Martin has truly changed. Your voice matters in this community we're building together. Now, let's find out what happens when proximity forces Teresa to confront what she's been avoiding. Martin settled into Seattle life with the same methodical focus he'd once applied to building hotels. He established routines, dinner with the family twice a week, Saturday activities with the twins, Sunday family time if Teresa was willing. And somewhere in the careful structure of co-parenting, something else began to grow. It happened in small moments. 3 weeks after Martin's move, Teresa was stressed about a major firm presentation, the Greenfield Sustainable Housing Project, her biggest contract yet. Make or break for her company's expansion. She was reviewing documents at 5 a.m, running on too little sleep and too much coffee. The doorbell rang. Martin stood on her porch holding a cup from her favorite coffee shop. The exact order she always got. Almond milk latte with an extra shot. You mentioned the Greenfield presentation was today. Thought you might need this. Teresa stared at him. You remembered? Of course I remembered. Martin's expression was matter of fact. Good luck today. You're going to be brilliant. He left before she could respond. No expectation of thanks or reciprocation, just support offered freely. The presentation went perfectly. Teresa's firm won the contract, $30 million for a sustainable housing development that would provide homes for 200 families. That evening, her phone buzzed. Congratulations. I knew you'd get it. Martin. Of course. How did you know? Your assistant posted about it on the company page. I follow your firm's social media. Teresa stared at the text. He was following her work, paying attention to her life beyond just the children. She typed back, warmer than usual. Thank you for the coffee this morning. It helped. His response was immediate. You didn't need luck. You're brilliant at what you do. But I'm glad the coffee helped. Teresa found herself smiling at her phone like a teenager. This was dangerous. The following Sunday, Martin asked a question that changed everything. Teresa, can I take you to dinner? Just us. No kids. A chance to remember who we were and figure out who we could be now. Her instinct was to refuse, to maintain boundaries, to keep her heart safe, but also curiosity, longing, the possibility she'd been avoiding. Like a date, like a chance. If you're ready, no pressure, Teresa surprised herself. Yes. Okay, yes. The days leading up to dinner were strange. Teresa found herself nervous in a way she hadn't been in years. Choosing an outfit, changing 3 times, feeling ridiculous about caring. Elena watched with barely concealed amusement. You're falling for him again. I'm just being polite. It's dinner. Between co-parents, to discuss the children. Keep telling yourself that. The twins were thrilled. You're going on a date with Dad. Ivy's excitement was palpable. It's not a date, just dinner. You should wear the blue dress. Julian's tone was serious. Dad likes blue. How do you know that? He wears it a lot. And his house has blue accents. It's his favorite color. Teresa realized her children knew their father now. Had studied him. Understood him in ways she was still discovering. She wore the blue dress. The restaurant overlooked Elliott Bay. Water and city lights and the kind of view that made Seattle feel magical instead of just rainy. Martin was already there when Teresa arrived. He stood when he saw her. His expression stole her breath. You look beautiful. Thank you. You look nice too. They sat. The first moments were awkward. 2 people with 7 years of history trying to find neutral ground. Then the conversation started flowing. They talked about their separate journeys, who they'd become in the years apart. Martin's therapy work, learning to grieve Carolyn without being consumed by the grief, understanding that he'd turned her into an impossible ideal instead of remembering her as a real, flawed person who wouldn't have wanted him to stop living. Teresa talked about building her firm, the terrifying early days, the moments she'd almost given up, the fierce determination that came from having 2 lives depending on her success. This is different, Martin said, than 7 years ago. How so? We're not trying to prove anything. We're just here, being honest about who we are now instead of who we wished we were then. Teresa nodded slowly. 7 years ago, I needed you to make me feel complete. Now I'm complete on my own. I don't need you. But maybe that's when you're finally ready for someone, when you don't need them, but you're open to wanting them. Are you? Martin's voice was careful. Open to wanting someone? I don't know. I'm scared of it. Of trusting you. Of this working and then falling apart and having to survive you twice. I'm scared too. But maybe being scared together is braver than being safe alone. After dinner, they walked along the waterfront. The night was cool but clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Can I ask you something? Teresa's voice was barely above a whisper. Not as the mother of your children. Just as me. Anything. Why? Why did you choose her 7 years ago? We were good together. We had plans. And then Simone appeared, and suddenly you were getting married, and I didn't understand. I didn't choose Simone over you. Martin stopped walking. I chose safety over risk. Simone was comfortable. Easy. A partnership that wouldn't challenge me to face the parts of myself I was avoiding. You made me want to be better. Made me examine my grief and my fear. And I was a coward. I chose the woman who let me stay exactly as I was. And now? Now I've done the work. Not for you. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. I did it for myself because I finally understood that easy isn't the same as good. That comfort isn't the same as connection. That the life I was living was hollow no matter how successful it looked. Teresa felt tears threatening. Blinked them back. I'm scared of letting you in. Of trusting you with more than just co-parenting. Of believing this version of you is real and permanent. I'm here. I moved my entire life to be close to our children. I restructured my company, found a therapist, learned how to be present instead of just productive. I did all of that, whether you ever forgave me or not, because it was the right thing to do. Martin moved closer, careful, asking permission with his eyes. But if you're asking whether I'd like more than just co-parenting, whether I'd like the chance to show you I can be the partner you deserved back then, the answer is yes. Absolutely yes. The honesty hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Teresa could walk away, maintain her walls, keep her heart safe, or she could be brave. I need time, more time to see if this stability holds, to trust that you're not going to wake up one day and decide this is too hard, to believe you've actually changed and this isn't just an extended performance. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. Martin reached out slowly, took her hand. The touch was electric. Can I kiss you? Teresa's breath caught. Yes. The kiss was soft, careful, tentative, like neither of them quite believed this was happening. When they pulled apart, Teresa was shaking. This is terrifying. I know, but maybe the best things are. They dated for the next year, slowly, carefully, building something new from the ruins of what had broken them before. Martin showed up for everything. Teresa's firm winning awards, Ivy's first art show at the elementary school gallery, Julian's presentation at the Young Architects Conference. He became part of the fabric of their daily lives. Not just a visitor, a presence. Teresa learned to trust again, not blindly, but with eyes wide open, choosing daily to believe in his transformation, to believe in her own worthiness of being chosen first. 8 months after their first date, Martin said, "I love you." It was during a quiet moment making Sunday breakfast. Pancakes for the twins, coffee for the adults. Completely ordinary. "I love you." Teresa froze, spatula in hand. Martin continued, his voice steady. "I know that might be too soon. I know we're taking things slow, but I'm not going to hide it. I love you. I love who you've become. I love your strength and your fierceness and the way you've built an empire while raising our children. I love that you don't need me, but you're choosing to let me in anyway." Teresa set down the spatula, turned to face him. "I love you too." The words felt like jumping off a cliff. Again, still, it terrifies me. "But I love you." Martin pulled her close. The kiss was deeper this time, full of promise and possibility. The twins appearing in the kitchen doorway made gagging noises. Gross. "You're kissing. We're allowed to kiss." Teresa laughed. "We're adults. Are you getting married?" Ivy's eyes were wide. "Not yet, but maybe someday. Would that be okay with you?" Both twins considered this seriously. "Can I be in the wedding?" Ivy asked. "Can we both be in the wedding?" Julian corrected. "If there's a wedding, you'll both be in it. I promise." 2 years after the chapel incident, Martin proposed. It wasn't at a fancy restaurant or a romantic getaway. It was in Teresa's kitchen on a random Tuesday evening. The twins were in bed. Dishes were done. The comfortable quiet of routine. Martin pulled out a ring, simple band, sustainable diamond, architectural setting that looked like something Teresa would have designed herself. "I want to do this right. Not grand gestures or public declarations, just honest truth." He took her hand. "You've made me brave enough to choose fully, to risk my heart, to believe I can be the partner you deserve. Will you marry me?" Teresa looked at the ring, at him, at the life they'd built one careful choice at a time. "Yes, not because of obligation or the kids or anything except that you've proven yourself. Day after day. You've earned this. We've earned this." The kiss was celebratory, certain. "Right." They told the twins the next morning over breakfast. "Your dad and I have some news. You're getting married." Julian's tone suggested this was obvious. "How did you know?" "You've been smiling weird for like a week, and Dad's been nervous." Ivy squealed. "I knew it. Julian, you owe me $5. You bet on our parents getting engaged?" And I won. The family dissolved into laughter, joy, the rightness of choosing each other. They married 6 months later. Small ceremony on a Seattle beach. 50 people. Close friends and family. Ivy and Julian served as attendants. Ivy in a purple dress that matched her favorite dragon. Julian in a suit that made him look impossibly grown up. Richard Raymond cried happy tears. Elena served as maid of honor. And Simone, gracious to the end, sent a gift with a note. "Congratulations on finding what was real. You both deserve it." The ceremony was personal, intimate. Vows they'd written themselves. Martin spoke first. You taught me that love isn't about perfect timing or easy choices. It's about showing up, doing the work, choosing each other when it's hard. You've made me braver, better, whole. I promise to choose you, wide awake and certain, every day for the rest of my life. Teresa's turn. You broke my heart 7 years ago, and then you spent 2 years proving that broken things can be rebuilt stronger. You've taught me that walls can come down, that trust can be earned, that I'm allowed to be both strong and loved. I choose you, not because I need you, but because loving you makes me more myself. The twins presented the rings. The officiant pronounced them married. The kiss was witnessed, celebrated, right. Reception on the beach, dancing and laughter and family. Martin danced with Ivy, spinning her until she shrieked with joy. Then with Julian, who endured it with good-natured tolerance. Teresa watched her family, the word feeling real for the first time. 5 years later, life had settled into beautiful ordinary. Teresa's firm had expanded nationally. Sustainable housing projects in 12 cities. Her work featured in architectural magazines and urban planning conferences. Martin's Northwest Hotel division thrived. He'd proven that businesses could succeed without requiring their leaders to sacrifice everything else. The twins were 11 now, brilliant and confident and secure in being loved. Julian won a young architect competition, his design for an eco-friendly community center earning national recognition. Ivy's art was featured in a youth gallery, her dragons and castles and impossible worlds rendered in colors that made people stop and stare. Sunday family dinners remained sacred. No phones, no work, just presence. And there was a new addition, a baby girl named Carolyn Grace. Teresa had suggested the name, understanding that honoring the past didn't mean being haunted by it. Martin had cried when she proposed it. Are you sure? I'm sure. She was part of your story. And our story includes all of you, including the grief that shaped you into someone capable of choosing us. One evening, 5 years into their marriage, Teresa and Martin sat on their deck. They'd bought a house together, bigger than either of their previous homes, space for their blended, expanded family. The kids played in the yard, Julian teaching Ivy physics principles through an elaborate ball-throwing game, baby Carolyn toddling after them on unsteady legs. Do you ever think about that day in the chapel? Martin asked. Sometimes. I think about how terrified I was, how close I came to not walking through those doors. I'm grateful you were brave. I'm grateful you did the work to deserve it. They sat in comfortable silence. 7 years of history, 5 years of marriage, a lifetime ahead. You know what I've learned? Teresa said quietly. What? Second chances aren't given. They're earned. Love isn't about perfect people. It's about imperfect people choosing to grow. And being chosen first, wide awake and certain, is worth waiting for. Worth demanding. Worth never settling for less. Martin took her hand. I choose you, every day. Wide awake, certain, first. I know. That's why this works. Inside the house, the phone rang. Work calling. Always work, but it could wait. Because this moment, this family, this life they'd built from devastation and determination, this was what mattered. The twins' laughter floated across the yard. Baby Carolyn took 3 wobbling steps before sitting down hard on the grass. Teresa and Martin watched. Together, partners, choosing each other daily, proving that broken things could be rebuilt, that trust could be earned. That 7 years was enough time to become someone worthy of the second chance they didn't deserve but were given anyway. If this story moved you, if you believe in hard-earned redemption and second chances built on consistent action, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button if you believe Teresa made the right choice, both walking away and coming back. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that walking away from second place is brave, that demanding to be chosen first is not selfish, that real love is built in ordinary moments, not grand gestures, that broken trust can be rebuilt, but only with time and proof, that you're allowed to protect your heart while leaving the door open to possibility. Subscribe to Mr. Kingsley Luck Stories because this is what we do here. We tell the truth about love and loss and the messy, beautiful work of becoming worthy of the second chances we're asking for. Drop a comment telling me your story. Have you ever given someone a second chance? Did they earn it? Have you been the one asking for a second chance? Did you do the work? What would you have done in Teresa's position? In Martin's? Do you believe people can truly change? Your voice matters in this community we're building together. We're not just watching stories, we're living them, learning from them, becoming braver because of them. Remember this, you deserve to be chosen first, wide awake, certain, every single time. Don't settle for less. Don't accept being second to a memory or a career or a fear. You deserve someone who does the work, who shows up consistently, who proves through actions, not just words, that you matter. And if you're the one asking for a second chance, understand this. Pretty words mean nothing. Promises are empty without follow-through. You have to do the work, the hard, unglamorous, consistent work of becoming someone worthy of the trust you broke. Therapy, self-examination, showing up even when it's inconvenient, choosing them every single day, wide awake and certain. Second chances are possible, but only when both people are willing to transform. Only when the person who caused the harm takes full responsibility and does the work to heal. Only when the person who was hurt is brave enough to risk again while maintaining boundaries that protect their heart. This is Mr. Kingsley Luck's Stories, reminding you that your story isn't over yet. The best chapters might still be unwritten. The person you're becoming might be exactly who you need to be to receive what you've been asking for. Choose bravely, love wisely, do the work, show up consistently, and never, ever settle for being second choice. Until next time, remember that broken things can become beautiful when rebuilt with intention, that trust earned slowly is stronger than trust never tested, and that the love worth having is the love you have to fight for, not against. This has been the story of Teresa and Martin, two imperfect people who learned that second chances work only when both people are willing to become their best selves. That children deserve truth even when it's complicated. That walls built for protection can become prisons. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, and the second bravest thing is knowing when to come back. Thank you for being part of this journey, for believing in messy, complicated, real human stories, for understanding that redemption is possible, but never easy, for knowing that the best love stories aren't about finding the perfect person, but about two imperfect people choosing each other every day, through the hard, the beautiful, and everything in between. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose yourself first so you can choose someone else fully. Build a life so complete on its own that adding someone becomes enhancement, not completion. And remember that you are worthy of being chosen, wide awake, certain, and first. Always first.